So, hello. So, my name is Cyril Ferli-Kodelbecq. For those who do not know me, I'm working with and on Pharo since more than 10 years now. But today, I'm not presenting my work, I'm presenting the work of Alexis Knoeckert that could not be here today, and Stéphane Ducasse that has already too many presentations. I will present my own work Friday. But today I'm presenting smoothing the flow of refactorings and tools in Pharo. So I will start by some context, then the bigger part of the presentation will be on Pharo refactorings, then on the method browser of Pharo and some other things. So, as I said, I'm not presenting my work, but I'm presenting the work of Alexis, that is a master student at Lille, that is doing half studies and half working on improving Pharo. He's in his second year of working on Pharo, and at the beginning he was working mostly on improving the Pharo UX and reducing the paper cuts. After a year of doing that, he worked on a bigger project, and the first one is to improve the refactorings. So first, a little definition. What is a refactoring? It's a code transformation that preserves the behavior of a program. So for example, pulling up a method from a class to its superclass. And I will use this example to illustrate all the part on refactorings. And in general, we do it to clean code. For example, we want to implement new features. The code is not very clean, it's not easy, so we will do some cleaning before doing our new features. Another thing that is important for this presentation is the vocabulary point of view is the transformation. A transformation is a code transformation that alter the behavior of the program compared to a refactoring. So for example, if we pull up a method, it can alter the behavior of the program if the superclass already have a method of this name. For a little bit of history, the first version of the refactorings in Pharo was implemented by John Brandt, and a new version was implemented during the PhD of Gustavo Jacen de Sousa Santos to bring the concept of transformation, because John Brandt implementing refactorings and Gustavo explored the concept of transformation and implemented a whole new project around that. Then came Balsa, that is present at SSUG, but I think he's at AWST, and he is doing a PhD on a new architecture for refactorings, and this new architecture is being applied to the Pharo refactoring by Alexis. So, why a new architecture? It's because of how was working the previous flow. So, for example, for the pull-up method, what was when we were applying it, what was done is that we were instantiating the refactoring. Then we were checking some preconditions because, as I said, for example, in a pull-up, if the method is present in the superclass, the refactoring is not a refactoring. So, if a precondition is triggered, then we gave some feedback to the user. If no precondition was triggered, we were producing a set of changes that we provided to the user. The user could validate that he wanted the changes, and we applied the code modification. But this had some limitations. For example, the user feedback was pretty poor. Also, as I said, we had a first model of refactorings from John Brandt and a second model with transformation from Gustavo, but there was a lot of duplications between those models. Also, if a precondition failed, there was nothing to do. The refactoring was cancelled, and that was done. And the last big problem was that the UI and the model were mixed. And most people know that it's not really a good idea. So, as I said before, we had two models. So we had the refactoring with their own API, and we had the transformation with their own API also. A first step has been to introduce a common superclass and to merge both projects. We did not want it to maintain two projects, and both had their uses. So now we have only one project with one hierarchy and a common API between both. Another big change is the introduction of interaction drivers. Like I said before, the UI and the model were mixed. Now we do not want that, and so we have our model of refactoring and transformation, and we have a concept of drivers that drive our refactoring and that manage, for example, the user feedback, the interactions with the users, all the UI parts. We also split the preconditions into two categories that are applicability preconditions and breaking preconditions, and I will go into more detail after. And on top of that, we reified the preconditions to make them a little more powerful and easy to use. For people who would like to implement their own refactoring, they can reuse these reified preconditions. And also, we introduce a concept of choices that allow, in case of some preconditions failure, to still do some changes. About the preconditions and choices, as I said, we split the preconditions. We have the applicability preconditions that allows us to know if we can do something, and in some cases, we cannot do anything. So for example, when we pull up a method, if our class does not have any superclass, we cannot pull up a method. But we have also breaking preconditions. It's preconditions that that do not allow to refactor in the way that it will not change the behavior of the code, but sometimes we can still do some actions with transformations. So for example, if in my method I want to pull up, I reference an instance variable that is on my class, if I pull it up, it will have an undeclared access to an instance variable that does not exist in the superclass. But sometimes we still want to do these kind of things. So when we have a breaking precondition that is triggered, now we are proposing choices to the user. So for example, maybe I want to pull up the instance variable with the method that I'm pulling up. Or maybe I want to pull up anyway because I know that I will do another change and it will fix this undeclared variable. Or I can browse some methods to have a better idea of the code or cancel. So now we give options to the users, and you can suggest new ones if you want. It's still a work in progress that we are doing, so do not hesitate to give feedback. Now the new flow looks like this. So we do not see it, but here it's supposed to be a box with written driver, and here it's supposed to be a box with refactoring to show the split of the model and the UI. But so in the UI, we instantiate a driver that will partially initialize the refactoring. With this, we can check the applicability preconditions, and if we cannot apply the refactoring, we will give feedback to the user as before. But now we check also the breaking preconditions, and if one of them breaks, we can give choices to the user that will either give feedback or initialize a new refactoring or transformation or directly produce changes. It will really depend on the choice you make. And when it's okay, we do as before, we let the refactoring or the transformation produce the changes, give feedback to the user and apply the changes. So the current state is that this is a work in progress. In Pharo 14, Alexis produced more than 90 pull requests to implement around 15 drivers, but we still need to implement more of them. And a big change also, a big part of the Alexis work was to add a lot of new tests because refactoring are a vast domain and the test coverage was not really good. Another big part of what Alexis did was to work on the method browser. The method browser is this little guy that when you are using senders or implementers or class reference is opening. And we had some problem with it because, for example, in Pharo we want to migrate from Morphic to Block, a new graphical stack. But in order to do that, we migrated all our UI to Spec that can have multiple backends. But the method browser was not implemented with Spec, but directly in Morphic. And it's a central tool, so it's really important to have it working well. So here you have some examples of some widgets in blocks. So a Spec method browser was started by Esteban Lorenzano, was in Spec and independent of the backend, but it was a work in progress that did not match all the features of the old one. So the first task of Alexis has been to ensure that all features of the old ones were present in the new one, like for example, running tests, or managing the traits in Pharo, or having the system of scopes, because Calypso introduced a system of scopes that was really tied to it. So now we have a system of scopes that is more global in Pharo. Or we also have command registrations for all the actions that you can have in the method browser. And so if you want, you could also add your own commands. A system of tabs, etc. So we try to go on all the features of the old browser to be sure that the new one also had them. And we added some new features, like for example, now we have a new button that allows to know where we want to see the code, because sometimes we want to see it at the bottom of our list of methods, but sometimes we want to see it next to the list of methods, depending on how our screen is organized. And now it allows more liberty on our screen organization. Or we can now sort our entries by packages or selectors, etc. And there are some work that is being done in Spec to have a unique Pharo code editor. For example, to have a refactoring menu that is consistent over all the tools of Pharo, etc. So it's some work that is being done by Alexis and Esteban. So do not hesitate to give us feedback, because we try to go over all the features we knew of the method browser, but sometimes people have some workflows that we do not know. So Pharo 14 will soon be released. Do not hesitate to let us know if there is something missing. And then Alexis did some other stuff that are smaller but still have some impact. For example, last year it was already presented, but there is Cavrois that is a way to manage better our windows. So for example, we can set some spaces for our windows, save a profile, and open a new image and load our profile, and our windows are going where we want. Things like that. There is a link for the ESUG presentation of last year if you want to check later. Or he worked also on Iceberg, for example, a case that multiple developers had. You have your branch and you have your local commit that is here, but in your Pharo image and on GitHub, for example, you have more commits on your branch. If you wanted to check this commit before in Iceberg, what you needed to do was to check out this commit, to go back further in the history, and then to do a pull to come back to the commit later. Now, we propose directly to reset our current branch to this commit. Or, for example, to create a new branch with a different name, or to cancel the operation to simplify our workflow. Or, Alexi implemented also a window uncloser. So it's a little tool that you can enable. And when the tool is enabled and you close Windows, it will save those windows. And if you accidentally close one and you want to open it back, you can do it through this tool. It's not enabled by default because it could create memory leaks, since all windows that you are closing are still here hidden in the system. But if you know what you are working on, you can enable it and still open the windows you closed. Or he also added some features, like for example, imagine you move some methods as an extension of some classes, and you have to do that multiple times for the same class, or move a class to another package. Before, all the time, the tool was opened on the full list of classes or packages of Pharo, and you had to select your class or package all the time. Now it saves the last selection, so that you start with the last thing you did, because most of the time we put things in the same places. And he did many more things. I just highlighted some of them. So thank you for your attention. Once again, it was not my work, but the work of Alexi, that is finishing his master now. And if you have questions, I'm here.
Thank you very much.